the basic platform of any build should be subframe connectors. Okay, so it's getting cold here in the Midwest, and what that means for car guys and drag racers is 3 months of downtime and build season. So the basic platform of any build should be subframe connectors. So today's tech tip, we're going to go over subframe connectors. A very, very good entry-level subframe connector is the one that we designed about 4 years ago. We did this with the intent of having the best subframe connector for a Mustang on the market. We did this different than most everybody else. What we wanted to do is create these plates that tied the back of the torque box, or the back of the torque box, into the front subframe. So our subframe connector actually goes from the rear lower torque box almost to where the K-member bolts in. It's a few inches short of where the K-member bolts in into the front. It's a full-length CNC bent subframe connector for a 79 through 04 Mustang. A lot of people wonder why we went with round tube rather than square tube, because round tube actually is stronger. Typically, when they use square tube for making subframe connectors, square tube gets all its strength from the crowns, which means the corners. When it's formed and made into a box, that's what makes it strong. But when you bend a box, you break the crowns and you weaken the material. So we used 1.5 inch, 120 wall DOM 1018 steel, and we CNC bend them to contour to the bottom of the floor of the car. And we use these plates also, which slide in place, so you would bolt this in to the bottom of your seat, and when you get this up in place, you tack it all in, and you can weld that into the bottom of your subframe, which ties the floor pan into the subframe also. So you have two positions of welding here on the front frame rail, and on the back this ties into the rear frame rail and the lower torque box. So that means the energy from the rear end is transferred into the lower torque box and then transferred through the subframe connector, connecting your whole car very tightly and almost having it be like it has a full frame. We have a couple different options that we're just coming out with because you guys have been asking for it. We're now offering a powder coated version of this subframe connector. And like I said, when we set out to do it, we set out to do it right, and we wanted to make the best and the strongest subframe connector on the market, and that's why we did them out of round tube, CNC bent them, included the torque box plates and two plates that you can rosette weld and fully weld to the front subframe. We also get a lot of questions about which subframe connector is better, through the floor subframe connector or an under the car subframe connector. Now we do make our through the floor subframe connectors out of square tube. This is 2x2 square tube 083 wall chromoly. But what we do, we don't bend them. We pie cut them in the direction that they need to go, and then we weld them. So they're pie cut on 3 sides, bent into shape, and then they're TIG welded into place. These are a great foundation too if you're putting a cage in your car. These actually, you cut through the front subframe, the floor of the front subframe. This inserts down in there, and then the kit comes with a front outrigger and a rear outrigger that goes on roughly 35-degree angle and ties into the rocker panel with a 3x4 plate that comes there, a 6x6 plate that goes in the back, and this section from the seat bulkhead to the front of the footwell gets MIG welded into the chassis. The reason you would want something like this is if you're going to put a cage in, this is a great foundation since the main hoop will weld on top of the rear kicker and the A-pillar bars will weld on top of the front kicker. Thus it won't need any 6x6 plates and will be welded right to the subframe connectors. So these make a great foundation for a car that's getting a cage put in it. And these things, we've got them on cars that are making a lot of horsepower, and the people didn't want to cut through their floor, so they bought these instead. So if you're beginning your build this winter on your 79 through 04 Mustang, check out our subframe connectors. If you want the strongest and one of the best subframe connectors on the market for your car, check these bad boys out at www.teamzmotorsports.net.